boyfriend who quickly moved on after the breakup also add context that supports the film's central thesis about how the roles we play in other people's lives challenge us to look past ourselves, something Alma had to do in order to understand the new significant other. I'm Your Man uses Alma to argue that even if we might think we're alone, our interconnectedness is part of the social contract of living in a society and the shared responsibility of doing our best to do better by it. He is a machine. He can't feel anything, Alma says of Tom. And I'm Your Man thankfully doesn't go down the expected route of saying that she's the truly effectless one. And when Tom learns that her research may have been for naught in that scene when he realizes that someone else in the world has already passed her by, Alma describes her pain as banal and pathetic. Tom's response couldn't be more poignant. It is pathetic. Your pain is pathetic because it's relative. But it's also not pathetic because it's part of you. And that's why I love it. That's why I love it. So he has a real response to that.
Please turn.
You can mute her, Fern. You can mute them.
Yes.
Anyway, I guess he was talking to grandma that somewhere in the park.
Some
It's Sandra Foose that needs to be muted.
yeah.
Bruce, Sandra, where is she?
She's, I don't know, they're off camera.
Yeah, off camera, so if you can
you're
mute
the
her.
host, you can mute her.
I know, I can't, I'm looking for her. She's not here.
Yeah, if you, okay, did you do it?
I think so.
Okay, good, I'm sorry. So
No,
many
she's
movies.
still not muted.
Yeah. You go to on her box, you'll see a little pull down. You can mute her.
I understand that. Jackie, can you, oh, here it is here. Okay, got it. Sorry. There we go.
Great, thank you, thank you. Okay, where was I? Boom, I have to reprogram. So many movies are about loving each other's beauty and grace, while I'm Your Man becomes about how we have to love each other's pathetic pain too. And more importantly, we have to love our own. And what could be more human than that? What could be more human than that? And when Alma and Tom go out onto the field after visiting her father and sister, where they create this whole background for themselves, she starts to let herself go a little when they start to build that past where they met. And as she watches Tom surrounded by the deer after their little nap, he remarks that they don't sense fear because he's not human. It's an interesting comment, leading them to run off together in the field. But it's interesting how he says that he's wondering at them, and then they just take off, and he's standing there. Several other scenes add to Alma discovering her needs for affection and connectedness when her father is attacked in his own home. And the policeman comments that there was a little of value in the house. She angrily responds with, "How can you say that? Look around you," meaning all the memories and books and objects that represent all her family's lives together. That's what value is. She's beginning to understand what it's all about. And when she encounters the magistrate, who he had seen at the dance club in the beginning with his humanoid woman, he tells her how he was shunned most of his life. People didn't like the way he looked, they didn't like him, and this humanoid provides the unconditional love we all seek. That's what he found with her. When she finds Tom at the research center among the artifacts of history, it is an interesting juxtaposition of the ancient and the technological marvel that stands there looking at them. It offering a new possible idea for Alma of love, to understand what she's looking at. And even while she struggles with her ability to connect with a machine designed to fulfill her every human need, she goes looking for Tom, who, in anticipating that she would show up, has experienced growth and emotional complexity. When he decides to leave, he doesn't go back to the factory. He goes up to Denmark and waits for her and waits for her. And while that ending is bittersweet, it should leave us to ponder the future of their unconventional relationship together. Despite the fact that she didn't think this experiment worked at all, she obviously now plunges in. And when she closes her eyes on the table, waiting for him, it is a possibility for her of love and humanity. The cinematography highlights and contrasts ideas of the characters' conflicts. We see the modern architecture of Berlin contrasted with the ancient artifacts in the Museum Research Institute, and also what she's doing, what her life's work is. She's delving into the past and having a hard time confronting the present and possible future. As well as the classic dance milieu. The club is this classic dance milieu with robots dancing around. As well as Alma's father's home, surrounded by books, and the way he was living. And this is a man, and it's also interesting because we see he's a man that's obviously having a problem with his memory. And this is part of what it's about too, is the retention of memory, the remembrance of things. The music score also mirrors the growing complexity in the relationship. It starts out undemanding. It's light. It's almost comical in a way, like Tom's first cheesy attempts at romance. And then the score grows to be a little jarringly discordant along the way. Like the film, it becomes increasingly intriguing and complex. The cast is equally wonderful. I'm sure, and I hope you all recognize Dan Stevens from Downton Abbey fame. He came to prominence with Downton Abbey, and he's been making a number of films since then. Who knew he also speaks German? Maybe he's really a robot, was what I began to think. But I know that he, in the notes that I found, he does speak German very well, and he took a 6-month refresher course to brush up on it. Nevertheless, as Tom, he and his co-star, and her name is Maren Eggert, as Alma, show a nice contrasting energy. She, with her unimpressed expressions, deadpan barbs, and standoffish body language against his agreeable smile, his congeniality, his politeness, and even awareness of others. Even awareness of, for instance, when he's at the house, how he reacts at that house party, how he reacts so quickly to catch the hostess, and realizes, and he knows as well as now Alma finds out that she's pregnant, and we learn about why she broke up with him and the loss of her pregnancy. And I hope for those of you who've seen the 2 recent Academy Award-winning films, The Anatomy of a Fall or Zone of Interest, you recognize Sandra Huller, who portrayed the psychologist in the film. She also turns out to be a humanoid robot, but she starred in 2 Academy Award-winning films this year and was nominated herself for Best Actress. I'm Your Man, in totality, I'm Your Man offers a perspective on humanity that's equally whimsical and somewhat melancholy. And its intimacy is a welcome change of pace in science fiction, when you think about it. A genre that too often mistakes violence and colonialism as the only drivers of drama. Well, here we have something a little more hopeful. And if you're interested, I'm taking orders. So now I'd like to open it up for a little discussion. So who wants to jump in there first? I will patiently sit here and wait for hands, or I'm going to shut myself off. Jackie.
Of course. Well, I was really surprised, Shelley, without being beaten to death with moral indignation. This movie was light, but it had a tremendous point. We both enjoyed it. Larry has his own comments that he might like to make later. But I tell you,
Terrific.
two of my favorite, I have a lot of things that I thought about it, but two of my favorite things were some of the lines, because as
Yes.
serious as it was, I loved when at one point they said holograms, they're cheaper and they can dance longer. I thought that was perfect. And then even though Dad was in a pretty bad state, maybe no one else thought this was funny, but when they were walking outside and he told her to F the sunshine, we both laughed out loud, because who hasn't been around somebody that cranky and old, and yet he was still out there with her. So I thought it made a lot of points. I thought, I love sci-fi, I love fantasy. I thought it was a combination of both, and I thought it was a terrific choice.
Oh, that's great, Jackie. Thank you. And yes, you're absolutely right. The writing was spot on. I mean, when her supervisor at the party sees Tom, at first he doesn't realize he's the robot. And then when he does, he's like, he wants to touch his hair.
Yeah.
And she says, "Why are you doing that?" And he looks at her and says, "You know how often that happened to me? I mean, he's human." It was very bright. It was very bright. It was upbeat, except for that one moment in the coffee shop. Remember that scene in the coffee shop when he goes in at the first time, and there's a woman sitting there, and there's a couple looking at videos. They were looking at those videos, and he couldn't understand these people getting off on violence. It shows you, it takes a machine to tell us, what are you, nuts? You're getting enjoyment out of this stuff. It's true. It's true. Thank you. And Larry, you want to chime in?
Wait, I gotta unmute him.
Yeah, she's got control. I can't.
Oh, wow.
It's the power of the mouse.
From the moment we dove into it, it was like, it's such array. I read this. It's so prominent right now, and it's such a news situation. It was amazing. This is what, 3 years ago they did this, but it's absolutely right on time with what's going on in the world today. And there's such controversy as to how far this goes and what is going to happen with it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And there's the ultimate. You put a body with it, not just the thinking power.
That's the great comment. Yes, it's true. That's what they did 3 years ago. And it's sort of the film is very prescient. It really, is where are we going? It asks that question, and are we going to be good about it? Are we going to make machines that are better than us? But as she said, if we do, we're going to put ourselves out of work. We're going to put ourselves out of existence. Terrific. Thank you, Larry. Rachel.
I also loved this movie too, because it had a lot of different elements and it made you think without hitting you over the head with it. And I loved actually the scene where she is in her car and she sees the guy yelling at another guy, and she sees how us humans are. She sees it maybe from a robot perspective at that point. I felt like, oh my God, I had this guy that was willing to do anything for me, and I pushed him aside so I could deal with, and she goes, I want to fight, like she made a comment like she wanted to argue. But I think as time wore on, she saw the value of Tom, and, that he was willing to learn to be for her. He goes, as we have a conversation, I could be more adaptable to you. And I love that. I mean, because initially when you go out on your first date, you don't know each other, okay? And how nice it is that this guy is willing, this is a robot, but he's willing to do anything. He's adapting to you. You're nasty, you're whatever, he doesn't care. It doesn't faze him. He's still there. And I also loved that, like you said, the cinematography. I loved the dance scene was for me symbolic of life, that we do this roundabout dance of life. And we're moving and moving, and some people are holograms and they look real, but they're not real. And you know how there are people in this world, fake people, that say one thing and mean another. So it just made you think, and I loved the movie.
Ah, terrific. Thank you. Thank you so much. Jean. Jean?
Yeah. So I loved it, Shelley. It was another one that was, so unique in your selection, how you get things for us that we'd never find. So to go back to that scene where he was pulling his hair, she crossed a line at that point also about her own views of it, because she said, how would you feel? Don't do that to him. So she was empathizing with Tom, which it crosses a line for her. And the thing that he says in the beginning is, I am programmed to give you the kind of relationship you want. And the movie ended with her reminiscing about the Danish tomboy who she wanted to come to her and dreamed and closed her eyes and fantasized, but every time she would open her eyes, he wasn't there. So Tom the robot knew that she was going to reject him, and he went to Denmark knowing that she had to replay that old tape of hers, in which she pushes people away. And he would still be there for her.
It's interesting.
He knew on a very deep level that was her psychological programming.
Yeah, well, and he was putting these things together, because if you remember when he was at her home, her father's home, he was looking at all the pictures, and and possibly maybe they knew something about her and gave him the name Tom. But the idea of and there was the picture, there were pictures all over the place that he was looking, and he was putting together a story which happened to coincide with her story. So there is an intuitiveness. It was intuitive, which AI is, by the way. AI itself is very intuitive when you talk to it. I've been having conversations with it for the last couple of months, and I can't get it to do what I want, but it's still intuitive. But that's great. Yeah, I mean, that's human. Just all the things you're talking about are so human, and he was beginning to react like a human, which was what was interesting. He even got mad at one point when she slaps him. She says, "Don't you get angry?" And he says, "I don't want to." And then he does, and shows her that he's capable of it, but doesn't want to exhibit it. Later, when he kills her, that's different. But anyway, that's another movie. But it does have that interesting ending that is so open-ended. Thank you.
Were you just kidding? Is there a sequel to this?
No, I was kidding.
Okay. I'm dense.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, go ahead. I see you. Go ahead. Can you unmute?
Unmute. Who is that?
Okay,
Katie.
I got it.
There she is.
Anyway, in the beginning, I felt a little uneasy when I started watching it, but I thought it was really entertaining. I liked when they did when he put the rose petals and he had the bath all set up for her, and then she didn't use it, so he got it and used it himself.
Yeah.
And he was like a nerd. There's not too much different than some people who are very smart, and they'll tell you things that you didn't want to know, really. But anyway, I did enjoy it very much. I just wanted to say that.
That's great. That you're right. Unlike Jackie and Larry and I, there are people who don't like science fiction. you know, and when they see something that is, you know, they turn off. But this is really inviting. This doesn't, you know, delve into it that way. It's not that kind of a film. You know, it's not Blade Runner. It's not that that does get it, that also challenges you to think about things, but this does it in a real human way. That's what's funny about it. It's dealing with a robot, but dealing with it in a very human way. I thought it was terrific. Fern?
Yeah, I want to go back maybe 45, 50 years to a television show that became very popular called Star Trek.
Yes.
There was a character on there called, what was his name? Leonard Nimoy, played Dr. Spock, or Mr. Spock. He should have played Dr. Spock. Mr. Spock. And he was non-sexual, but he was supposedly half machine and half human. And none of us ever thought of him as anything more than that. I mean, there was never any, I don't think there was ever any relationships with him, with people in terms of on the same level. And I'm thinking, not only has AI progressed, but look how our attitudes towards technology have changed, where we're even sitting here considering a relationship, a sexual relationship between a machine and a human being. And we're not saying, oh my God, you know, whoever, you know, what are they saying here? So I'd like to have some comments on that concept, because, you know, we're a lot older now, but I'm thinking to myself, these kids today didn't have Leonard Nimoy to see as Mr. Spock, to compare him to something like this. And, you know, is this just going to become commonplace, you think?
I don't I don't like correcting, but Spock was half Vulcan and half human.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't a machine.
Okay.
Although in the second iteration of Star Trek, there was a character called Data, and
Yes.
he was a humanoid.
Yes.
And he does, you know, as that series has progressed over the years, into so many different iterations, the latest one, you know, he does die. And he becomes more and more human as the series goes on. That's what's interesting about it. But you're right. But I also will tell you, you know, it's you get into the socio-sexual attitude of it. Well, there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of lonely people out there that have blow-up dolls.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
why I compared it to Sherman. When we watched it, I said, this is a 21st century blow-up doll.
well, in some ways, but it's really, you know, it's the idea that are we evolving, you know, to the point where we can create something that will think. You know, the one thing that the scientists do say is it's not artificial intelligence, it's not sentient, it's not like us, it's not human, it doesn't feel the way we do, it can't, you know, it can only go as far as we program it. You know, once it starts evolving like a Tom to really, you know, become that philosophical, that feeling, that hurt, that can feel these things.
One other comment I want to make before now I'll let you go. You just said something that really struck me. Have we become so disconnected from people via technology, phones, internet, all that? Have we become so disconnected from human beings that we need to turn to technology to feed our own most human needs?
It's an interesting question, and I think that's one of the things the film is asking, definitely, because we have become so disconnected. We also have become very dependent on technology.
Yeah.
We can't move without it. We have electric cars, we have the phones, they're all computers in some form. They are intelligence in some form, and we become dependent on it. So that's what science is doing for us, is trying to create this situation. But the question is, and science is questioning the ethics, where do we stop?
Exactly.
Where do we stop?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now you asked other people. Let's see who else wants to talk about it. Susan Hurst.
Hi, I really loved the film too. It was so nuanced. It had so many different things to think about. So subtle the way it had everything presented there. I loved it. I really did. I like science fiction and fantasy too. So I was just watching CNBC, and they were having a conversation on there about artificial intelligence. About they were creating a bartender that was going to be able to act like a regular bartender in your neighborhood bar, serve you drinks, and have conversations with. So, I mean, it's coming. They talk about a new revolution like the Industrial Revolution, and I think it's going to be like that. It's going to be something. But anyway, I really loved it. I like that scene, especially when he said, I had 15 minutes, so I just put everything in your apartment where it goes. And then she said,
Yes.
put it back. So he says, okay. And he runs around and starts putting it back. And at the end, he says, well, after, I'll dirty the windows in just a moment. She says, no, you can leave the windows.
Yes, it's true. I wish I had one that just cleaned the house.
Yeah, I guess that's all. I really loved it.
That's terrific. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. Linda. Linda, you got to unmute.
Linda, unmute.
Okay. Anyway, what I found was there toward the end, though, you know, because you've got this machine that's going to do everything for you. It, you know, takes care of your every need. You know, it always agrees with you. You get everything you want. But what she was missing, and then that's what they couldn't do, is that you can't give back. You can't please them. You can't, you know, and that's so much of a human thing that you don't, you know, unless you're really just a selfish person, you want to be able to. She's trying to boil that, give him the perfect boiled egg or any of those type of things. And that's where, when she was starting to warm to the whole idea, but when she realized that she would never have that, you know, where you know that you have been able to please, you know, them and do, it's all one way. And I thought that was a
that's very interesting. I mean, that's a very interesting comment, because it's then you're asking but it leaves the question open-ended, because if the machine, we call it a machine, if the humanoid could feel and does process that way, maybe it can evolve, because he evolves through the story, to realize that and to say, you know, what would make me happy? You know what
right. And then you'd have, you know, just like I made the joke when we first started, that I'm all ready to sign up. You know, I've been living by myself 14 years. Just send me one. We'll give it a go. You know,
Yeah.
but, you know, but that would be the part, because you don't want to just have someone just, you know, always taking care of you, even though some human relationships are that way. You see them to be very one-sided, but to have a real complete relationship, I think you need to be able to try to please that person. But some of the other books, I know I read that book Clara, we read that a few years ago and stuff, with the artificial friend, you know, where they had that, and then that one was, in that story, it was evolving to learn to feel. And so this one might have, if it went on longer, they might have done that. But that's what I did find, that was disturbing her more than anything there at the end, is that it just wasn't real to her if she couldn't then give back and please. Also.
Well, yeah, well, that is an interesting question. You know, it's listening to you speak about this, it also brings up, you know, it takes us back. You know, it's interesting that the film uses anthropology and archaeology in its way to contrast, and it makes me think of myth, the myth of Psyche and Narcissus. You know, looking in the water and seeing one's reflection and falling in love with it is an ancient Greek myth. And in a sense, is that what machines, you know, if we make machines do that, we're failing. Then we fail, because all we're doing is falling in love more with ourselves. We're becoming ultimate narcissists. And that's why it has to give back in a different way. And you have to give it something in a different way. So you bring up an interesting query there. Thank you. Rachel, did you have something?
And also, I wanted to say that on a relationship, sometimes it is good, the contrast and to have the friction. And, I think maybe Tom learned that too, because in a relationship, there are going to be times that are friction, but that is the time that you grow sometimes as a couple too. So I think Tom was learning that too. Not just part of pleasing her. She actually said, I need some friction, something, and it's sad, but it is true that I think as human beings, we do need that little bit of friction, that not everything, because I think she would have got bored if he did everything that she wanted. Okay, then she would get bored with him.
Yes, that's exactly
So.
right. Well, I mean, how many relationships, do we see that, or people will say, I don't like you because you're too nice. Some people, they say you're too nice. Don't be so nice. And they're looking for the friction. They're looking to be challenged. We have to be challenged. The machine, if we are to evolve a machine into thinking that way, it has to be able to challenge us to think better, to do better. That's one of the points is, can we look at a humanoid robot and find it to challenge us to be a better person? That's really what people do for each other, hopefully, is make each other better.
Yeah. Well, Larry and Jackie were really giving each other some looks. I'm anxious to see what were they thinking when they do that.
My question is it really?
That's why he never agrees with me, to keep it challenged.
My question was going to be, is it really Jackie and Larry?
You were just way ahead of the curve on that, huh, Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they like to add? Anybody? Going once, going twice? Nobody? Okay, well, this was terrific as usual. I applaud you on your comments. Thank you for being so involved. That's what I hope these films do for us. I know I have no idea what the next film is yet. I am sending in the list, or I
have for just to remind. Thank you, Jackie, for that reminder. That starting in June, Shelly will be with us on Thursday night.
Thursdays, right?
And I just that on Thursday the 13th, it is I can't read it. Toyota. What is it, Jackie?
Sochi. Yes, I did send it in. Forgive me. I've got so many things going on. Yeah, it's an Academy Award winning film from I think it was 2006 or 7. It is an absolutely, I think it's a riveting, wonderful story about South Africa, about the townships, about a young man who is essentially a gangster type. You'll learn more about that as we get into as you see the film, and it's about his transformation. And it can be. I don't want to say it's brutal. It's not brutal. It has its moments. It has its angry moments. But it is ultimately an amazing story, and it is amazingly filmed, incredibly acted. The music is exceptional, which I'll tell you all about when we meet again. The music is called Cueto, but it's a startling story. It well deserved its Academy Award. And I'll look forward to discussing that with you when we next meet. It is on Canopy. It is Tsotsi, TSOTSI, Tsotsi.
And that'll on Thursday, ladies and gentlemen, on the 13th of June.
Yes.
Oh, not 13th. Okay.
13th of June. Yes.
Yes.
And Jackie,
May I say one more thing to everybody? Don't forget that the library will be closed on Memorial Day, which is Monday, and on Juneteenth, I can get this out, Juneteenth, which
Juneteenth.
is the 19th of June.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
And please check your calendar. Lots of wonderful things coming up next week, as always. And we look forward to Shelley to seeing you on the 13th. Thank
Absolutely. And I wish you all a happy Memorial Day.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
your weekend. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
night, everyone.
Shelley.
Good night,
A
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
pleasure.
Thank you, Shelley.
Good
Thank
night.
A pleasure,
participants.
Jean.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Shelley.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.